The music stopped mid-beat. Ellen DeGeneres froze in the middle of her signature dance move, one arm still raised toward the studio lights. 300 audience members fell silent, their laughter dying as quickly as it had erupted moments before. The cameras kept rolling, but something had shifted in the atmosphere of Studio 1A at Warner Bros. It wasn't technical difficulties or a celebrity surprise that had created this sudden hush. It was a 12-year-old girl in the front row, wearing a bright pink tutu and a hospital bracelet, who had just whispered 7 words that would change everything. "I want to dance with you before I die." The words hung in the air like a prayer, delicate and devastating. Ellen's microphone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the polished studio floor. For 40 years, she had been the master of recovery, the queen of quick wit, the host who could handle any unexpected moment with grace and humor. But standing there, looking down at this child, whose eyes held both hope and heartbreak, Ellen found herself completely speechless. It was Wednesday afternoon at the Warner Bros. Studios in Burbank. The late autumn sun streamed through the skylights, casting golden rays across Ellen's iconic set with its familiar blue and white color scheme. The studio buzzed with the usual pre-show energy, but sitting in the front row was someone whose presence would transform this ordinary Wednesday into something extraordinary. 12-year-old Madison Chen had traveled from Seattle with her grandmother, Mrs. Rose Chen, a retired nurse who had become Madison's primary caregiver when her parents couldn't handle their daughter's diagnosis. Madison wore a bright pink tutu over black leggings, the kind of outfit that would have looked perfectly normal on any other 12-year-old heading to dance class. But the medical bracelet on her thin wrist told a different story. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia, diagnosed 8 months ago. The bracelet was pink too, matching her tutu, because Madison had insisted that if she had to wear it everywhere, it should at least be pretty. The show had progressed normally through its opening segments. Ellen danced through the audience with her characteristic energy, her movements fluid and joyful as she high-fived excited fans and posed for selfies. She interviewed a celebrity guest about their latest project, creating the kind of positive energy that made good television. During a commercial break, Ellen noticed something that made her pause. While most audience members were chatting with their neighbors, the little girl in the front row was practicing dance moves in her seat. Her movements were precise despite the limited space, her arms flowing gracefully as she worked through what appeared to be a choreographed routine. When the cameras came back on, Ellen found herself drawn toward the front row. "Hey there," Ellen said, approaching Madison's seat with her wireless microphone. "I couldn't help but notice you practicing some moves during the break. Are you a dancer?" Madison's face lit up with pure joy. "Yes, I've been dancing since I was 4. Ballet, jazz, contemporary, hip-hop. I love all of it." Ellen knelt down to Madison's level. "That's amazing. What's your favorite style?" "Contemporary," Madison replied without hesitation. "I like how it tells stories with your body, how you can show emotions without saying anything." There was something in the way Madison spoke about dance, a maturity and passion that seemed beyond her 12 years. Ellen glanced at Mrs. Chen, who was watching with a mixture of pride and barely concealed worry. "Well, maybe later you can show me some moves," Ellen said, starting to stand up. That's when Madison reached out and gently touched Ellen's arm. "Ellen," she said quietly, "can I tell you something?" Something in the child's tone made Ellen pause. She'd developed an almost supernatural ability to recognize when a moment required her full attention. "Of course, sweetheart, what would you like to tell me?" Madison looked up at Ellen with eyes that seemed to hold secrets too heavy for someone so young. "I have leukemia," she said simply. "The doctors say I'm really sick." The studio didn't fall silent immediately, but Ellen heard every word, and she felt something shift inside her chest. "How long have you been sick, Madison?" Ellen asked gently. 8 months. I've been in the hospital a lot, and I've missed most of my dance classes this year, but I keep practicing in my hospital room. The nurses think it's funny when I do pirouettes around my IV pole. Ellen felt tears beginning to prick at her eyes. "Dancing must be really important to you." Madison nodded emphatically. "It's everything. When I dance, I don't feel sick. I don't think about the treatments or the medicine or being tired all the time. I just feel free." That's when Ellen made a decision that would define this entire episode. She stood up and walked to center stage. "You know what?" Ellen announced to the studio. "I think we need to change our plans for today." The audience looked confused, but Ellen was no longer following any script except the one her heart was writing. "Madison," Ellen called out, "would you like to come up here and dance with me?" The 12-year-old's eyes widened with disbelief. "Really? Right now? In front of everyone?" "Right now, in front of everyone. Because I have a feeling you have something beautiful to show us." Madison looked at her grandmother, who nodded encouragingly despite the tears streaming down her face. Slowly, Madison made her way to the stage, her pink tutu swaying with each movement. Ellen met her at the top of the steps. "What would you like to dance to?" "Do you know 1,000 Years by Christina Perry?" Madison asked hopefully. As the opening notes began to play, something magical happened. The audience fell completely silent, understanding they were about to witness something extraordinary. Madison began to move, and Ellen understood immediately why dance meant everything to this child. Despite her illness, despite the toll that 8 months of treatment had taken on her small body, Madison moved with a grace and emotional depth that defied her age. Her movements told a story of hope and struggle, of beauty found in the midst of pain. Ellen found herself following Madison's lead, allowing this incredible child to guide their improvised duet. The cameras captured every moment, but this was no longer television. This was art, created spontaneously by a girl who understood that sometimes the most powerful way to fight darkness is to create light. When the music ended, the studio erupted in applause, but Ellen barely heard it. She was looking down at Madison, who was breathing heavily but smiling with pure radiance. "Madison," Ellen said, her voice thick with emotion, "that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen." Madison beamed up at her. "Thank you for dancing with me. I've dreamed about this since I was little." That's when Madison said the words that would break Ellen's heart and change everything. "I want to dance with you before I die." The studio fell completely silent. Ellen's microphone hit the floor with a metallic clang. Every person in that studio felt the weight of those 7 words. Ellen knelt down in front of Madison, no longer concerned with cameras or protocols. "Madison," Ellen said softly, "how long do the doctors think—" Madison shrugged with acceptance no 12-year-old should possess. "They don't really say, but I heard them talking to Grandma. They use words like aggressive and limited options. I know what that means." Ellen looked past Madison to Mrs. Chen, who nodded almost imperceptibly, confirming what Madison had shared. "But I'm not scared," Madison continued. "Well, I am scared, but dancing makes me brave. And dancing with you right now, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me." Ellen felt something break open inside her chest. "Madison," she said, "what if I told you that this doesn't have to be the only time we dance together?" Madison's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Ellen stood up and walked to her desk, grabbing her checkbook and business cards. "I mean, what if we made dancing together a regular thing? What if every week we had a dance session? Here in the studio, at your hospital, wherever you want." Madison's face lit up with disbelief. "Really? You would do that?" "Madison, after what I just witnessed, I want to do so much more than that." Ellen turned to address her audience. "This is Madison Chen, and she just reminded all of us what courage looks like. She reminded us that even when we're facing the hardest things imaginable, we can still create beauty." Ellen wrote out a check and returned to Madison. "This is for you and your grandmother," she said, handing Madison the check for $50,000. "For any treatments, any expenses, anything you need. But more importantly, I want to start something new on this show, a segment called Dancing Through, for kids like you who are fighting battles that require extraordinary courage." Ellen reached into her jacket and pulled out her personal business card. "This has my real phone number," she said. "I want you to call me anytime you want to dance, anytime you're scared, anytime you need someone to remind you how incredibly brave and talented you are." Ellen turned to her wardrobe assistant. "In 1 week you're going to receive a package," she told Madison. "Inside will be the most beautiful dance costume that's ever been made, and we're going to use it when you come back next month for our first official Dancing Through segment." Madison threw her arms around Ellen's neck. and Ellen held her close, feeling the fragility of this brave little body, while also sensing the incredible strength of spirit within it. "Thank you," Madison whispered. "Thank you for making me feel like a dancer again, instead of just a sick kid." Ellen pulled back and looked directly into Madison's eyes. "Madison, you are not a sick kid who happens to dance. You are a dancer who happens to be fighting an illness. And dancers are some of the strongest people in the world." As the episode concluded, Ellen addressed her audience one final time. "Today I thought we were going to talk about dreams coming true," she said. "And we did, but not in the way I expected. Today a 12-year-old girl reminded us that dreams aren't just about getting what we want. They're about finding beauty and joy and purpose even when everything seems impossible." The episode aired exactly as it happened. The response was overwhelming. The show received over 150,000 messages from viewers sharing their own stories of courage and moments when art had provided strength in impossible circumstances. The custom dance costume arrived at Madison's hospital room exactly 1 week later. It was a creation of silk and tulle in shades of pink and gold, designed to accommodate medical equipment while still allowing for full range of movement. When Madison put it on for the first time, the nurses said she literally glowed. Madison returned to Ellen's show 4 more times over the following months. Each appearance featured a new dance, each more beautiful than the last. The Dancing Through segment became a regular feature, showcasing children from across the country who were facing various challenges but finding strength through movement and music. The segment raised over $2 million for pediatric medical research and dance therapy programs in children's hospitals. 6 months after her first appearance, Madison's doctors delivered impossible news. Her cancer was in remission. The experimental treatment that Ellen's foundation had helped fund was working. On her final appearance, Madison performed a dance she had choreographed herself to "Stronger" by Kelly Clarkson. As she moved across the stage in a costume of silver and white, everyone understood they were witnessing something miraculous. Ellen's final words that day became the motto for the Dancing Through Foundation. "Sometimes the most powerful way to fight darkness is to create light. And sometimes that light comes in the form of a 12-year-old girl in a pink tutu who refuses to let anything stop her from dancing." Madison is now 14, cancer-free, and one of the most sought-after young dancers in the Pacific Northwest. She still carries Ellen's business card in her dance bag, and every performance is dedicated to kids still fighting their own battles. Because sometimes the most ordinary Wednesday afternoon can become extraordinary when someone has the courage to share their truth. And sometimes that truth comes in the form of movement and music and the irrepressible human spirit refusing to surrender to fear. But the story doesn't end there. 2 years later, Madison called Ellen with special news. She was starting her own nonprofit organization, Tutus for Hope, providing dance therapy programs for children in hospitals across the country. At the launch event, she performed the same contemporary piece she had danced with Ellen that first day. But this time she wasn't dancing alone. Dozens of young patients in pink tutus joined her on stage, each one proof that sometimes the most powerful medicine comes in the form of music, movement, and the courage to keep dancing no matter what. The foundation has since expanded to include online dance classes for hospitalized children and partnerships with major children's hospitals to integrate dance therapy into treatment protocols. Madison's story became the catalyst for a movement that has touched thousands of lives across the globe. Ellen keeps a photo from that launch event on her desk. Madison surrounded by other brave children, all of them dancing their way toward healing. Next to it sits a small pink tutu, the same one Madison wore that first day, now preserved as a reminder that sometimes courage comes in the smallest packages and creates the biggest changes. Because sometimes one moment of courage creates ripples that transform countless lives, one dance at a time. And sometimes a 12-year-old girl in a pink tutu can teach the world that the most beautiful performances happen when we choose hope over fear, movement over stillness, and life over surrender. So the next time you find yourself facing something that seems impossible, remember Madison in her pink tutu. Remember that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's dancing anyway. Remember that your darkest moment might be someone else's brightest inspiration. Don't wait for the perfect stage or the right audience. Dance where you are, with what you have, while you can, because sometimes the most important performance of your life happens not when everything is going right, but when everything seems to be going wrong. And sometimes, just sometimes, your willingness to be vulnerable, to share your truth, to keep moving even when you're scared, creates the exact miracle the world needs to see.